Here's a little topic I wanted to discuss. Global warming, right? I'm going to put the punchline at the very end, so maybe you'll listen to my thoughts all the way through. And the punchline is that uh, global warming is just meant to keep us in foreign wars, right? So that's the punchline. Now let me get there. And before I go on too much further, I wouldn't mind if you subscribe to the channel. I'm trying to get up to a point where I can at least have some streaming, or I might find an alternative technology to do that too as well. I'm still building the channel, but if you do find this, my messages, my words, my content, in any way useful or whatever, let me know. Put it down in the comments below. And if you got well thought out comments, I will be more than happy to respond. Anyways, so the whole global warming thing of this year, and it kind of comes in spurs, right, over the past 30, 40 years. And I think it's just meant to keep us in war. So how do I get to that conclusion? Well, first, we've never had a global warming problem when we were not energy independent in this country, right? The current president, he's done a lot to make us energy independent. We are producing our own oil and gas in the United States and meeting our own needs. Now, we've always produced enough oil and gas for our own needs. However, we sold most of what we had, and then we bought foreign oil, right? So that was always a weird thing for me when I was back in my Army days, to realize that and to hear those numbers. We've been energy independent more or less for a very long time, but we refused to be energy independent, right? Because we needed that influence. We need to buy influence from other countries. And how do you buy influence? Trillions of dollars of oil, over the course of a lifetime. For the first time, we're energy independent. And all of a sudden now, because we're energy independent now, we're spurring on global warming. You realize that this country generates cars now that the exhaust coming out of their tailpipes is cleaner than Los Angeles air, right? That's something, right? And that's a gas burning engine. That's not an electric engine or an electric car. So first and foremost, the global warming thing came up really quickly to, I think, to get us back into foreign conflicts, right? Or at least buy foreign oil, right? And this whole Greta Thunberg thing from earlier this year, late last year, how dare you? She's a symbol of two different things. We're not supposed to argue against women, and we should never argue against children. Which, why wouldn't you argue against a child, right? Children by default don't know anything, and they're supposed to learn from the world and from the parents and from others. Take them as subject matter experts. If they're a Doogie Howser, maybe, right? But that's one in 7 billion. Anyways, so the global warming thing really only ramped up again when we were energy independent. Because somehow foreign oil doesn't produce the same amount of toxins, and pollution that our native oil does here, our domestic oil. And well, that's kind of funny, right? It's like saying, some grass over here makes, anyway, that's a bad analogy. Whatever, scrub that from the comments. Oil is oil. It's all dead dinosaurs, right? One flavor of the dinosaur might be a little bit different because maybe they have more seafood, and whatnot. Who cares? Who cares? It's all dead dinosaurs. The second thing is that there's a lot of companies in this country centered around the Intel community, which I think is sad because for a long time I supported the Intel community above and beyond everything else, but past few years have shown that the Intel community is nefarious. But anyways, what have soldiers done for such a long time? Since the early 90s, we have been used as corporate security for oil pipelines, right? And on top of that, when they're talking about the Russia conspiracy, Russia. Well, I mean, the real Russian conspiracy here is that we were doing the best we can to make sure that Russia can't serve Europe oil, right? We want the Middle East to serve Europe oil. Now, who's closer? I mean, you can take a train from St. Petersburg or Moscow to Western Europe. You can't take a train to the Middle East from Europe. If you could, that'd be a hell of a long trip, right? So that's the Russian conspiracy right there. And then that's the only reason also why we're in Libya. There was no reason for us to be in Libya because of Gaddafi. Before, Gaddafi, and after that was Libya. And then what's his name? Bald-headed, I don't know. I want to say Erdogan, but it's not Erdogan. Anyways, why was it Russia and America vying for control of that? Well, it's a pipeline. It's a pipeline into Europe, into Turkey, right? And why in the world are we concerned with that? All right, there really shouldn't be a need for us to be concerned with that, right? But the same thing we see in this country right now with intel agencies and I wouldn't say intel agencies, but companies that collect intel. This whole thing from when Snowden released his documents has released a lot of information just about how these companies, and you'll recognize a lot of the heads of these companies, they're former intelligence heads of the CIA and NSA and so forth, collect information here and there. But they're also, these are the same agencies that have started wars and conflicts no different than what's happening in our country and other countries. South America, Middle East, so forth. What do you think they do? They do propaganda efforts just like they're doing here in the United States, and then they create entities like Black Lives Matter and Antifa and so forth. Do I think that these are sponsored? Sort of. I don't have any proof, and I'm not even going to look for proof on that. But I do believe that these ideas are being fed to them to spur on this hatred. The same thing with how during the Obama years, all of a sudden, police brutality videos were just popping up left and right. They're inciting hatred, right? They're starting a movement. They're starting, and that's just a disinformation campaign. Same thing that we do in the Army. It's called psychological operations. We have a unit or units in the Army that are just PSYOPs units. Their whole reason for existing is to destabilize an enemy unit or an enemy country, from the smallest unit up to the biggest unit. And we used to even practice with this in training. We used to go through and, do little baby psyops is what I'd call it when I played Op 4, opposition forces, and training missions. I'd take a loudspeaker out there and drive along the road in a Humvee, and I would just go out there, and I know that there's an infantry company or two infantry companies or maybe an infantry battalion bow around there. And I'm going to guess there's going to be a Sergeant Smith out there. Sergeant Smith is probably, I'm going to guess that he's married and that he's got, a kid, And I don't have any information on anything, but all I do is with my bullhorn at, midnight, because I know everybody's, in their defensive positions, whatnot, and you're, Sergeant Smith, met your wife at the so-and-so bar last night. God damn, can she suck a bleep? And then you just do this, and I come back again about 3 or 4 in the morning when everybody's tired. And what you're doing, and you do this over the course of many, many days, and you destabilize, you demoralize that unit with little to no information. I don't have their battle rosters. I don't have their unit UMRs, their manning rosters. I don't know anything about there. I'm just making guesses. But over the course of less than about 4 or 5 days, I could get those people pissed off enough to where they're about ready to stop playing, the training exercise and come out and real life murder me. right? And it's just because I'm guessing, right? You're just demographics. You know the people you serve with, and you understand what the makeup of the typical unit is, right? And and you do the same thing like you do in horoscopes. You speak vaguely, and people hear, and those words resonate. If you ever actually read a horoscope for what it is, they never say anything except for The Onion has great horoscopes, or they at least used to. I haven't read The Onion in years, but they used to have great horoscopes. So read The Onion's horoscopes; they're dead on the money. Anyways, and that's all this is we're starting wars by pretty much making people read horoscopes, because people are already going to have a predilection for believing a certain way as it is. If they're already going to believe it, all you have to do is tip them over the edge. They're at the 49% mark. You just got to give them to 50.1%, and you've tipped them. And now they're going down the bunny hole of what we see now, where people are so tunnel visioned, and everything they see, and everything that's not in their, outside of their blinders, the rest of the world is completely, bullshit to them, because they've been tipped over the edge. Right? And, this is also kind of funny because this is a narcissist trait as well. Narcissists can have this ability with people if people aren't self-aware, right? And that's how it really works. We've got a very entitled country for the most part. It's been progressively getting more and more entitled. I think that's what progressive means. We're progressively getting more and more entitled. And then when people are entitled, the more entitled a person is, usually the less ability to think for themselves they have, it seems. And when they have like rational thought, it's not really rational thought. They think it's rational thought because they've heard the words and they think that they're being rational. But, like I was watching a Timcast IRL show, and I rewatched it, about 2/3 of it. It was a very long one. And I'm not going to say who it was. And the guy moved from irrational thought to irrational thought and just strung them together, trying to sound like a philosopher. And and it takes a long time to unpack that amount of information being pumped out by somebody, because you're just trying to keep up. And I think that's the ploy too. Is like, if I spout out so much stuff, you're going to be stuck on topic 1. I'm already on topic 33. All right, and you're like, well, none of this makes sense. And if you think about it rationally, it doesn't make sense. Anyways, these intel organizations have done this to other countries, and now they've been doing it to this country, and they started probably 8 years ago or so. You saw that, especially when you started seeing all the propaganda pop up on social media about all the police brutality videos and all this stuff. And now it's reached a tipping point where people actually believe there are millions and millions and millions of black people being slaughtered in the streets by police every day, and everybody's just hiding it. Really? Okay, we got cell phone cameras like every 10th of a mile across this country. Nobody's hiding this shit. There's no little magic bulb from Men in Black erasing everybody's knowledge and telling them it's swamp gas. Anyways, but do we? Maybe we do. Well, we have a lot of people telling us, oh, what you saw really is swamp gas, and that's a narcissist trait as well. And do I believe that these intel people are narcissists? No, but they are using the tricks of a narcissist, and because they are effective. They are simple to unpack, though. That's the thing. So, let me get back on track here. So, my whole premise was that global warming is about foreign oil and about keeping us in war. These intel agencies, and what they have termed since Eisenhower, I guess, is the global or the military-industrial complex, and that does exist. It really much does exist. These companies out there would not exist without war. They churn out so much stuff. And the more war we're in, the more materials that they can produce and more money they get. And they send contractors here and there all over the world, so on and so forth. And then they've also dug these contractors are also now like the IT contractors, right? General Dynamics, for instance. They used to build engines and airplanes and so forth and weapon systems, and now they're also an IT contractor. And same thing with like a lot of these other, like Harris, right? Or so on and so forth. And So they're in there, and I wouldn't say it's all because of that. I would also say it's partly because of survival. There's a business need, and they're like, well, if we might as well be in that business too. Let's get smart people and throw them at computers. Okay, but we need the soldiers over there protecting foreign pipelines because we need to have their oil in our country, and we also need to promote all this military industrial complex thing, right? And what it does is it's a disservice to the Americans in every single way. When we're consuming foreign oil that for some reason is much greener and cleaner than our oil, we're sending soldiers over there to die, to be pretty much corporate guards for somebody else's material assets. And and that's pretty much all. That's pretty much my bunny trail on that, right? Is that this whole thing didn't start spawning up until Trump started pulling us out, right? And even Congress, you'll be able to tell, for the most part, which of the politicians in there are part of the state sponsorship, because I think that, Republican and Democrat, they are both in on the game. It's just one big game at the expense of the American people. I wouldn't so much say that about the new politicians that came in. Like, what's the one guy's name from Texas? A Navy SEAL. He's definitely not part of it. He just got elected like 2 years ago. Starts with a C. I should know his name. I did like this morning too because I saw an ad on Facebook. I'm like, why am I getting Texas congressman ads? But anyways, so like the new folks in there, and then there's some other folks in there that I don't believe that are like Devin Nunes. Everything I've seen from that guy's a straight shooter. He's from California, even a Republican from California. How, interesting. The Paul family, Rand Paul and his son Ron, or his dad Ron Paul, guys are really straight shooters. I appreciate people that are honest and so forth. So I've really dovetailed bunny trailed off on that one. My whole thesis is that the global warming epidemic that we're in, along with our COVID epidemic, COVID's a different thing. I think it's been weaponized, but the global warming thing has been weaponized in order to shame us back into foreign oil and getting soldiers killed back overseas to protect those corporate assets and fighting against. Like Russia is a powerful, oil producer unto themselves. The whole eastern half of Russia going over to Siberia, and whatnot. Huge oil reserve, right? And we're just trying to still stop Russia from having influence into Europe when they're right there. But for some reason, we're promoting Saudi oil, Middle Eastern oil, and the Middle Eastern oil is supposed to feed the world. I was like, well, I think why not just let people participate in the free world market, right? They want this free world market, but only if you're a team player, right? So, anyways, we didn't have this global epidemic until Trump. Because Trump's trying to get us out of these wars. He's stopping these foreign trade agreements, and he's brokering peace deals as opposed to keeping unrest going, and somehow we're supposed to believe that foreign oil is greener than American domestic oil. We'll call bullshit on that, right? Olive oil from Italy is the same as olive oil from America. It just has a different label, and one's more expensive than the other, right? And it's because you have to import one into the country. So if you stop importing it, you don't have to pay those import tariffs and so forth. And then everybody benefits. I think everybody's benefiting right now from. I drive old vehicles, so I just use regular unleaded, and I'm getting a gallon of gas at ironically, it's at Dollar General for I think $1.70 something a gallon. I remember just a couple of years ago, it was over $4 a gallon in the same stores for a gallon of gas, and we're less than half of that. Why is that? Because we're energy independent. We're not paying all these tariffs to other countries. We can produce our domestic oil domestically, and one last takeaway. My son brought this home because his mother got him all worked up about global warming beginning of last year, or about a year ago. He's like, global warming, global warming, global warming. I was like, let's look at some of the global warming scientists. Let's see what they actually say. I went to their websites. I brought them up. I don't know what they actually say because I never read it myself. I was like, let's bring up 5 global warming scientists. Let's read what they say. None of them agree that the world's going to end anytime soon. Do I agree, and do many scientists agree that we've caused some damage to our ecosystem? Absolutely, I do, and I think we need to work on reversing that. But like I said in the beginning of this video, we have cars now that produce exhaust that is cleaner than the air in Los Angeles for gas-burning cars, right? So I think we're doing a good job. And also, the U.S. is way down from a lot of the rest of the world. We produce so little carbon emissions based on per capita than the rest of the world, for the most part. There's some countries that are definitely more green than us. Okay, that's fine. But they also have mass transit systems. We don't have mass transit except for in big cities in the country. We don't have mass transit across the country. A lot of these countries in Europe are smaller than a lot of the states in this country, right? So it's easier for a whole country to throw trains everywhere in their state or in their country, right? Here, even if we had a state that threw trains everywhere in their state, that would just be one state. It wouldn't solve the nation's problem. And we have great expanses here. Anyways. But I also asked him another question, my son, going back to his whole little, coming back from his mom's from a weekend being hysterical about global warming. I'm like, why did Obama just buy oceanfront property? Why are other rich people, why aren't they selling their oceanfront property? Why is it still going for $1 million an acre? Millions of dollars an acre for oceanfront property in some districts. That would be a poor investment if it's all going to be under 60 feet of water in 10 years. So I'm calling BS on that. It's a brown flag on the play. So that's my take on global warming. It's just spurred on by the military-industrial complex to keep us at war and to buy foreign oil. And I'm glad that we have a president here. That is seen. I didn't vote for Trump the first time. I voted for Gary Johnson because I was like, we had a guy that had been on TV. And granted, yeah, Trump is also a successful real estate guy, but I was just like, yeah, I can't see voting for him, right? He's a little bombastic for me, I suppose. Hillary, there's not a chance in the world. I'd vote for her for anything. And maybe the library lady at the correctional facility. I'd maybe vote for her for that. But I still don't know if that would be a safe thing to do. And then you had the communist hippie from New York. And she seemed like a very wishy-washy communist hippie. And then we had a pothead from, I think, New Mexico. And I was like, well, worst comes to worst, we'll just have great comedy for the next 4 years, and at the same time, I'm kind of sad that the Libertarian Party has not really been too much of a party. I mean, it's been a party, all right, man, but I think they need to lay off the booze in the pot a little bit and get their shit together. Anyways. Watching Trump the past few years, I like a guy, I like anybody, man or woman, that says that they're going to do something and then they follow through on it. And that guy's been under attack every step of the way. I can say, I might dovetail this into another video, so I will cut this right here and make a second part 2, and this won't be on global warming.